Well, I hope you're as glad to see State and Local back on the air as I am to be here after this long, terrible hiatus. Today we're going to talk about a state issue, a statewide issue, which is the questions that appear on the ballot. And this is an attempt or it's a way for citizens to voice their opinions about various issues. I'm very pleased to have one of my best friends and a political activist, Rafaella Feinstein, who is from Foxborough, and she is the chair of the Foxborough Republican Town Committee, and we're going to talk about how these questions come to be, why we even have the questions, and then we're going to talk about signing the petitions. This is the period right now when petitions are being signed. So, Rafaella, thank you so much for finding time to come in here and be with me.
Well, thank you for having me, Anne-Marie. I do appreciate it. The ballot initiatives are very important in our state. They've been important to me. I have been doing this actually since I retired from teaching. So I've been doing this quite a long time, volunteering to help with ballot questions as they come up. They are important in our state because it allows the people, groups of people throughout the state, usually 10 or more, needed to write a petition. And these petitions are submitted to the Attorney General's office for approval. And so this past September, the petitions were due early September. I think there are 15 petitions out now. Were due in the Attorney General's office, and the Attorney General and her team of lawyers reviews them, and they get an approval. Not all of the petitions, obviously, that are submitted at any one time during the year are approved. And these petitions that are approved right now, thousands of people across the state are out collecting signatures for these ballot questions. And if enough signatures are received, enough certified signatures from voters are received, they will appear on the November 2022 ballot. And prior to that, every voter, every household usually gets a little book that says ballot questions that explains the pros and cons of each question. This is a huge task, and as I said, I've been doing it. I learned to do this, and I've been doing it for a long time. And what happens is that the petitions are approved again by the Attorney General, and all of the petitions this year, my understanding is that we have to get 85,000 certified signatures from across the state. And the certified signatures are signatures of anyone who's registered to vote in Massachusetts in any party. I have to emphasize that because when you're out collecting signatures, many thousands of people do not understand this process. And they think they're signing their life away, literally. Again, it's for any registered voter in Massachusetts in any party. And these signatures only allow each question to be on the ballot, to let the voters decide. This is a very important democratic process. So,
you know, Rafaella, I've even had people think that they're voting when they sign the sheets.
Yes. That comes up an awful lot. Every time we're out in the street, no matter what ballot questions initiatives we're doing, you always have a small percentage of people that think they're voting on something. And it's difficult. I'm not sure after all these years how we can explain that, whether newspapers can put the process in the paper, which you don't usually see, or TV. It could be on TV, special election clips. To educate the public. But it's a tough job trying to get signatures and educate the public at the same time.
Rafaella, do you think there's an element of the state really not wanting to let these questions come out because it is a citizen participation situation? And I because they are very strict about accepting these signatures, and I understand that if there's one mistake on a page, they can throw it out.
Well, obviously in anything, there are people with varying opinions, and over the years that I've been involved in many of the different ballot initiative questions, there have been people who have made it a little difficult. I remember when we had the automatic gas tax petition, if I remember correctly, we did get enough required signatures, but then we were asked to go back out for, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks only, and get another
yes, I remember
16,000 certified. This is a very difficult job, but it was done. The volunteers were very committed, very faithful. They got out at the time. It was winter. They got out in rain, snow. So it does happen, not always, but it does happen.
Well, of course, that would have represented more revenue for the state.
Right. That was the automatic one, but that did not pass. Currently, there are 15 ballot petitions out there. And again, most of the difficulty we have, is with the signature collection is, number one, finding places. Usually the supermarkets, outside post
Libraries.
offices are a good place to do it. Public libraries should be, although the traffic in public libraries isn't that good.
Conducive to, yes.
It isn't that good.
Oh, that's
Supermarkets
true.
are the best. Inside larger malls is good, and getting a strategic location where you get a lot of passersby. There is a law that says, we are able to do this, although sometimes you get a manager of a store, a supermarket that does not understand, and then we have to, call corporate and remind them that we're able to do that. But the signatures themselves, you have to be very careful. Number one, each page is for a particular town, so you have to make sure that voter signs on the correct town's sheet.
We're going to look at that sheet in a minute.
Yeah, I have copies of samples for all of you to view if you'd like. The signature has to be clear. As I go along to town halls and city halls, taking these in, I've asked a number of the town clerks over the years, what's the greatest problem of certifying the voter's signature? And a voter may be certified in that town, but if a town clerk or their staff does not understand the signature, they often let it go. So
there's even a fellow over at the Market Basket who's being paid, and he has all of the questions, and he only takes one signature per sheet for that very reason.
It's very, very rare for them to throw out a sheet. And it's very difficult to take a sheet with one signature to a town clerk.
Oh, I agree.
That's a lot of work for the town clerks.
I thought so too, but
it's a little bit of overkill.
Yeah.
I think the sheets are able to hold about 25 signatures. And, people don't like to fill up the whole sheet. That's fine. But I think at least 10 or 11 signatures on a sheet is appropriate. And I think it's up to the person who is collecting the signatures at a specific location to be educated, to look at the signature, to let the voter know, please sign, legibly. If you think your signature is not legible, please sign it, and next to it, print your name legibly. So that's what the big push has been lately, to print names, and that's helpful to the town clerks. If you are a registered voter and you do sign the ballot sheet and you would like to see this initiative on the ballot, we need to be very careful and make sure you do it correctly.
Now, how do you submit the question? What do you have to do to submit a question for
Well,
consideration?
I've never done that, but I've asked people, and I know you have someone in Norfolk who's been on one of these questions. I have a woman in Foxborough who's on another question. And you need at least 10 people. Someone gets an idea to have this, and gets 10 people from across the state, or pretty much across the state if they can, to work on the petition. And these petitions that have been recently submitted for this round, I think all had to be in by September 10th. So it's a group of people working together, perhaps like in a town or a city where you would come together to write a warrant. You need so many people
Yes.
on the warrant. It's the same idea.
Now,
And-
Patricia, why don't, excuse me, I said
That's
Patricia, was Patricia St. Alban is the one in Norfolk.
Oh, yes, I
Her
know.
name is
Yep,
on one
yep,
of those. Now, can you tell us what's on that, and we're going to see it on the screen,
Okay, well, I have,
Katie's
right
gonna put it
now,
up.
there are, like I said, 15 petitions throughout the state. I am not familiar with all of the petitions. It would be quite impossible to really work on all the petitions, but if anybody is interested, the website, sec.state, state.ma.us is our Secretary of State's website. It's a very important website, and I think people should check that all the time throughout the year. It gives so much information, so that voters are informed. That is one of the other difficulties in collecting signatures. So many voters have no idea about ballot initiatives and why they're important and what they actually do. But anyway, I personally, in this area, am working with someone who's over my head, and everybody in the towns have a team of people who are working on 3 petitions that I know of. One is called Petition F, and this is a petition that to show ID to vote if you vote in person. Many people get confused with that issue. If you vote in person, we would like, if you're asked to show an ID, you should have a photo ID. If you don't have a photo ID, all you need to do to vote that day is to sign an affidavit, if this goes through, as to who you are and you're living at the address you say you're registered at.
Rafaella,
So it's very simple.
doesn't this question require them to ask for the ID?
Well, if it passes, probably, it's
Yes.
the way the law will be written. But this is the way we explain it to people. It's just in-person voting right now.
And this will become a law if this
If
goes
it's passed,
through.
and it goes on the 2022 ballot, and the voters vote for that. I mean, that's down the road. That's pretty far down the road.
So all this has to be done way ahead of time to get everything done, to get the questions in, to get the signatures.
Oh, yes, there's a schedule.
The approvals.
Right now, people are collecting signatures. Every week, a tally is made. There are people in different areas that will take the appropriate sheets to a town hall, whether it's Norfolk Town Hall, Foxborough, Rentham, to the town clerk's office. The town clerk's office will count the number of sheets, count the signatures, give the person who's dropping them off a receipt, and when they are ready, they will call that person. So right now, all of these ballot initiatives, questions have to be into the town clerks by November 17th, by 5 p.m.
Oh, okay.
for certification, but we're doing it constantly
Yes.
because it's a lot for the town clerks and the city clerks. Once they're in by the November 17th, then it's up to the towns to promptly certify what they're going to certify, call the volunteers who are collecting them to pick them up, and then they need to be brought into Boston, into the Secretary of State's office. I think it's by December 5th this year. So it's a lot of work, and this is all volunteer. Okay.
Now, what are the other 2 questions
The other
that you're
2
familiar
that I've been
with?
involved in are Petition M, which is to stop the Transportation Climate Initiative gasoline tax.
Oh,
That's something that started about 3 or 4 years ago, I think.
that's going to be an additional tax on top of what we
Well,
have now.
I can explain briefly about it and tell voters where to go to learn more about this. 12 states, New England and Mid-Atlantic states, and the District of Columbia were involved in trying to get many things to happen. Voters to drive less, lower their carbon print, you might call it. And with that, in the beginning, the first year, for most states, every state obviously would be very different, is to have a gasoline tax of some estimates were 17 cents a gallon. Additionally, yeah. Other estimates were the first year it would be 25 cents a gallon in some states for gasoline, and maybe 52 for diesel fuel. Now, to some people it doesn't seem like a lot, but they're basically, this is designed to lower carbon print, have people drive fossil fuel related vehicles, which includes trucks. When I say fossil fuels, it not only includes gasoline, but diesel fuel, propane, other motor oils, and have people move to electric cars or public transportation. So there is a website, stop TCI gastax.com, and hopefully you'll put it up a little later on that people can go and research this one. I personally, right now, think it's a bad idea because with that, so many prices will go up. Gas
yes.
stations may close. They want to also ration. It's very complicated to ration the fuel. But I must say that all other 11 states and the District of Columbia right now have either opted out or will be opting out very soon, except for Massachusetts.
Why is that? Why can't we?
I actually cannot.
we just haven't
I
chosen to
actually
opt
can't answer that question. I know Governor Baker is is for this, and I'm not sure the reasons why, because you don't see it too much in literature, newspapers, or websites. But Stop the TCI gastax.com is a good website to go to. Also, massfiscal.org is another group that often has much information, a nonprofit, much information on all of these questions.
Well, I think we know why Baker is in favor of this. I mean, he realized. I mean, this is why Baker is so popular, because he's very liberal, even though he's a registered Republican.
But people really need to research. I don't. Again, this is a nonpartisan question, so people need to be informed. They truly need to be informed. But these kinds of taxes, which we seem to stop in their tracks, really affect lower income, middle income people,
working people.
Right now, with the economy in flux, serious flux, most businesses and people do not need something like this.
Oh God, no.
So that's one that I'm involved in. The second one I'm involved in is, the third one, I guess. So it's the voter ID, show ID to vote in person, stopping the TCI climate transportation initiative. And the third one is the Mass Protection of the Newborn Act. And last Christmas Eve, a state legislature passed the Roe Act. And part of that Roe Act, and this is the part I'm involved in, is if there was a baby born alive from a botched procedure, such as an abortion, that at that time they passed a law saying the equipment could be in the room, but there was no mandate that the medical staff had to reasonably help that child to stay alive. So that passed Christmas Eve last year.
How ironic.
Very, very sad. Very sad. Yeah. And so a group of people got together and wrote a petition and submitted it to the Attorney General. I have to be honest, my understanding is at which time the Attorney General's office was not quite clear on 3 words for this petition. So they decided that they were not going to let it out for signature collection. And the 3 words were baby born alive. So the group got an attorney and they went to court. And it was a little bit 2 weeks late starting this procedure, but the court said that petitions and signatures for this petition could be done. And there was a couple of stipulations that I'm not privy to at this point in time. So anyway, my groups have been out there working very diligently collecting signatures on these petitions. Oftentimes people are at the supermarkets, like I said, post offices, malls, but many times, and this is very helpful for people listening, a couple of things. Number one, all of us have 10 voters we know of any party, and you can certainly pick up these petitions and have your family, friends, and collect in your neighborhood. So if you're the kind of person that doesn't want to stand out or is uncomfortable standing out in a public location, that's quite all right. You still can volunteer and help people out. We have hundreds of people doing that. The other thing is that a couple of the websites do have a button, if you travel to them, where you can sign the petition. So you can pass that website on to your friends and family.
That's something new, isn't it?
It is something new, because there was a time when the signing petitions online was not acceptable, but the technology, I guess, is very good now. So that can be done. So that's what we're doing now. So
should we take a look? Katie's going to put it up on the screen.
Okay.
So could you just go over what somebody would see when they look at that. They'll see the description.
Okay,
Of
I
the
can
question
read.
Well, the description is always there at the top, and
There's
then
a summary. There's
the
a
summary,
summary here
rather,
that's
summary.
here. If again, the total law, the way it was written, we couldn't fit it sometimes
Right.
on the petitions. The total one is at sec.state.ma.us. Your Secretary of States will have them all posted. if
and the
you go.
total one appears on the ballot, isn't that right?
It should. And you're all going to get, if you're a registered voter in a household that's correct, they do mail out booklets in the fall of all the ballot questions that will appear in the November 2022 ballot. And you can also go to your town hall, your city hall, and pick up copies of that also.
And there should be a copy on the bulletin board or
There's
somewhere
a copy
visible.
posted at every town clerk's office, city clerk's office, absolutely. Elections office, some cities don't have a city clerk's office where they do it, but they have a town or city elections office, which is quite clear, but it means that the voter has to do a little bit of research, but we all know that voting is important, and we all should be informed, so.
Well, I think it really is a matter of somebody being a patriot in this time when there's so much censorship in big tech, and there's so much, in my view, there's so much suppression of patriotism if you're going against certain groups, you know.
Well, one
and
of the things that we
that-
find out when we're collecting signatures too, I mean, there is a small group of people that has no idea about ballot petitions, and we educate them. And most people definitely appreciate that. They're very polite, and they're really surprised that they had no idea of how it worked. And then you get the people who do understand it and are just so amazed that right now the information isn't out there unless you travel to the Secretary of State. And not many voters think about doing that. So that's one of the things I try to impress on people. And it's a website that people should go to, maybe once a month throughout the year. If you're a voter, if you live in the United States of America, or you live in the state of Massachusetts or any of the 50 states and territories, be informed. And it's our responsibility also, so.
And I sign everything, whether I agree with it or not.
Oh, I do
because
too.
when the time
Yep.
comes, you vote against it.
Right, exactly.
But it's another thing people don't seem to understand, I
Well,
found.
they do understand that. They choose not to sign a petition if they don't like the petition.
That's true, yes.
But that's a choice, because we do explain that. And we live in America. I mean, they have that right. So that's why, to have 85,000 certified signatures across the state, our group has to go out and every single ballot question has to collect at least 110,000. It's an enormous
Unbelievable.
task. And I'm hoping, letting the public, it's an enormous task. So again, when you put your signature on that ballot on that signature page, it's just to allow it to be on the ballot so all Massachusetts voters can decide. But-
that 110,000 number, to my mind, shows how they weed out the signatures. Because you need 85, and then you have another, what,
Well, yes, but it's
25,000?
not also the state. People do make mistakes. People don't sign correctly. One of the other mistakes a lot of people make, because I've asked town clerks and city clerks, is that they put the wrong number of their house. If you live at 10 Hillside Lane, they may put 20. Now, why do they do that? Some of the city clerks and town clerks think, well, maybe they didn't really want to sign the petition. I mean, usually people know their address. So that was surprising to me, how common that is. People move, and during petition signature collecting time, they may still be registered at their old address, but they think they can automatically sign at the new address without going to register to vote. That's
Right.
another common error. Another very common one is people who live in large condominium units or apartment units. You not only have to put the street address, but maybe the building number or letter.
Right.
And your apartment.
Right.
Some people put the main address and you put apartment 200. So, and there's no one they're not correctly registered there, so they won't accept that. I mean, I think most town clerks and city clerks do try, they do their best with this, but there are some errors that people do make, and if they don't sign the way they're registered, then they can't do much about that. So.
Now, if people would like to go out and sign and help with this, where would they get those sheets?
Well,
go to
I
one of
think
these
right now,
websites?
you could, well, if you go to the websites, they will have information or a button you can sign. Right now, the 3 that I'm working on are being sponsored by the massgop.com. Well, not sponsored, they're helping. And massfiscal.org. And oftentimes they have the PDFs, and you can download them.
Oh, really?
And they'll explain that if you do download them, you have to have a printer that does two-sided copying. They will only accept two-sided copying, and that there can be no discrepancy in top and bottom margins or the side margins. And also, another little fact of information, if you do this on your own, people can only sign these petitions, this is another very important thing, in black or blue ink. No other color. Black or blue ink, no pencils.
No pencil, huh?
No red pen, purple pen. That's very important. So, and no marks in the margins. If someone does make a mistake and for whatever reason, thinking of their address, they're one of the people that may have moved and put their new address instead of their old, please do not cross out anything on these sheets. It's okay. Just have them sign correctly on the appropriate sheet. So no.
On the next line down, for example.
No. Well, if they're in that town, yes, the
yes,
next
yes.
line down. If they sign on the wrong sheet,
Oh, yes.
they have to go to the other sheet. But don't cross. People like to
Right.
cross out things sometimes. So, no stray marks at all. They're pretty strict, but I do understand why.
Now, where
So-
would people, other than the downloads, where would people actually get those sheets? Physically get them? Would they get instructions from one of these websites?
Yes,
Tell them where they
one
could
of the
pick them up?
websites. There are volunteers. There are contact people. There are contact
Oh.
people throughout the state. I'm not one of those contact people. I'm just doing my area, so that's what they would have to do. Although you could go to Mass GOP, and there is a button you can click for city and town committees. And all of the chairmen of the city and town committees with their emails will be listed. So if you live in the town of Rentham, you can email the chair, and they should be able to help you. So that's another way.
Oh,
If you
that's
email,
right.
Yeah, they should be able to help you, get them to you. So I hope I've been helpful.
Oh, you have. It's been a tremendous amount of information. This is very good. Because I really wanted to get this out while we had
Yeah.
time still left to be collecting signatures. So, thank you very much for watching. This is State and Local. I'm Anne Marie Battistone. This is Norfolk Cable TV. Remember that knowledge is power, and be a patriot, especially now. And thank you for watching. Rafaella, thank you so much for coming
Oh,
on. It's been great.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I hope I've been helpful.
Very much so.